check what basic speaking words you know. To say, to tell, to chat, to discuss. What's the difference? And other more verbs like this. Hello friends, hope you're doing well today. My name is Alina. Here I teach English for work and life. And today we are going to learn more than 30 core words for speaking and communication process. So these words are highly important for our daily communication. So believe me, after this lesson, you will feel yourself more confident and you will speak more confidently, fluently, and accurate. So let's begin. Let's start from the very beginning. So here are 7 elementary communication verbs you must know. To speak, to talk, to say, to tell, to spell, to pronounce, to translate. Let's explore the difference. So, to speak means to use a language or talk in general. For example, do you speak English? Or we speak English at work? Or we can say she speaks 4 different languages. Next one is to talk. It means to speak with someone, usually in an informal way. For example, we need to talk, or I like talking to you. Or we can say we talk on the phone with our clients every day. Next one is to say. So that means generally just to express words. For example, may I say something? Or I can't hear you. What are you saying? Next one is to tell. So that means to give information to someone. For example, tell me what happened, please. Or she always tells the truth. Next one is to spell. It means to say letters of a word. For example, how do you spell your name? Or we can say, my name is Alina. It's spelled A-L-I-N-A. And next one is to pronounce. It means to say a word correctly. For example, how do you pronounce this word? Or his surname is difficult to pronounce. And finally, to translate. It means to change words from one language into another one. For example, can you translate what he said? I don't understand Chinese. Now, as we have looked at the basics, it's time to explore more useful communication verbs. So, the first thing to do is to start a conversation. So, here are more helpful verbs to do this. To greet, to introduce yourself, to introduce somebody, to welcome, to invite. Let's explore the difference. So, to greet, it just means to say hello to someone. For example, our boss usually greets the team warmly. Or she greeted me with a beautiful smile. But here we have to be attentive because we can greet people in different ways. So, in professional or polite situations, it's better to say hello, how do you do, good morning, good evening, and so on. And in casual situations, of course, you can say hi, hey there, what's up, and so on. Next two expressions are to introduce yourself and to introduce somebody. So, to introduce yourself means to say your name and basic information. For example, let me introduce myself. My name is Alina. I am a business English teacher. And to introduce somebody, it means to make people know each other. For example, let me introduce Jack. He is our new sales director. Next one is to welcome. It means to greet someone in a friendly way when they arrive. For example, welcome to the company or welcome, come on in. Again, please don't confuse welcome and you're welcome because you're welcome we usually say after the words thank you. And finally, to invite. It means to ask someone to come somewhere. For example, we would like to invite you to join the party. We look forward to seeing you there. Okay, now let's move on to the center of communication process. So, to have a conversation, to have a discussion, to discuss, to chat, to witter, to joke, to gossip, to drop a word. Again, let's explore the difference. So, to have a conversation, it means to talk with someone for some time. For example, we had a very productive conversation about the project. To have a discussion or to discuss, it means to talk about a particular issue or problem. For example, I want to discuss this issue after the meeting, or let's discuss it later. I have no time. Next two are somewhat similar, to chat and to witter. So to chat means to talk in a very friendly way and usually in an informal situations. For example, my colleagues are very friendly people and we often chat during breaks. But be attentive here because if you chat too much, you can become a chatterbox. So a chatterbox is a person who talks too much. And to winter means to talk for a long time about things that are not important at all. For example, she keeps wittering instead of working. And our next verb is to joke. It means to say funny things. For example, he was joking at lunch. Or we can say joking usually helps break the ice at work. Our next verb is a very interesting one, to gossip. So, to gossip means to talk about other people's private life, especially behind their backs. For example, they were gossiping about their boss yesterday. And finally, to drop a word. It means to say something quickly or briefly. So, for example, we can say, I have some fresh ideas. Can I drop a word after the meeting? Just great, but what's even more important are question and response verbs. So let's take a look at them. To ask, to answer, to reply, to respond, to explain, to clarify, to mention, to describe, to recommend, to suggest, to encourage, to warn. Okay, let's explore these verbs. So, to ask, it just means to say a question. So, for example, may I ask a question? Or he asks about a raise. What should we answer? So, to answer means to give information, a response to a question. For example, let's answer in a positive way. To answer is a very general word, but we have some more, to reply and to respond. So, to reply means to answer a message or a letter or an email, whatever. For example, she replied to my mail quickly. And to respond, it means to answer in a very formal way. For example, the company responded to my request yesterday. Next two can seem somewhat similar, but still they are different. To explain and to clarify. So, to explain, it means to make something understandable. For example, she explained the rules. And to clarify, it means to make something clearer. For example, I'd like to clarify the task. May I? Next one is to mention. So it means to say something briefly. For example, we can say, he mentioned your name twice during the meeting. That's a good sign. Our next verb is to describe. So simply put, it just means to say what something is like. For example, He described his job and its responsibilities, and I have to say that it sounds very promising. Next two can be really confusing sometimes. So, to recommend and to suggest. To recommend means just to say that something is cool. For example, I would like to recommend this new cafe. And to suggest, it means just to give an idea. For example, he suggested working on this project together. Next two verbs are really contrast: to warn and to encourage. So, to warn means to tell about danger or problem. For example, he warned me about the risks, but I still believe in this idea. And to encourage, it means to give support or motivation. For example, our new manager encouraged me, and now I have lots of fresh ideas. Okay, we have already done solid work, but that's not all yet. So, in other speaking situations, we can show our emotions. It's natural. So, here are some additional conversational verbs you should know. So, to interrupt, to butt in, to argue, to quarrel, to fight, to bicker, to shout, to whisper, to mumble, to grumble. Okay? As usual, let's explore these verbs. So, to interrupt and to butt in. To interrupt means to stop someone speaking. For example, sorry to interrupt, but I really need to say something. And to butt in means to speak when the other person is speaking without waiting. For example, he kept butting in the whole meeting. He is a very annoying person. Next two are somewhat similar: to argue and to quarrel. So to argue, it means to speak angrily, to have different opinions, to disagree. For example, they are arguing about the project, and to quarrel, it means to disagree or to argue, but very emotionally and for a long time. For example, they quarrel about the budget all the time. Next two are somewhat similar, but they are really contrast: to fight and to bicker. So to fight, it means to have a serious disagreement. So for example, they had a serious fight over the client. And to bicker, it's always about something that isn't really important. For example, they still bicker over that chair. Each of them wants to sit closer to the boss during meetings. Next two are indeed contrast: to shout and to whisper. So, to shout means to raise your voice and speak loudly, and to whisper, it means to speak in a very, very silent manner. For example, don't shout at work, or he whispered something in my ear. Next two are somewhat hilarious: to mumble and to grumble. So, to mumble means to speak quietly and not clearly. For example, he often mumbles during meetings. It's really hard to understand his speech. And to grumble means to complain in a low voice, especially when you are unhappy about something. For example, my colleague is grumbling about his work all the time. Wow, what can I say? You did a really cool job today. Thank you for your efforts. And don't forget, practice is the key, so try to use these verbs as much as possible in your daily life. So again, thank you. Stay positive. Keep on practicing. It's your turn to shine.